All right, so we've got plenty going on here today across the sports betting landscape. We've got plenty of Major League Baseball action. Steve R1L Merril will be joining us here in a few. We're going to go down and highlight a whole lot of games that we've been looking at. But in addition to the Masters, tonight, huge, and I mean huge, card in the UFC 300 tonight. We are looking so very forward to diving into some of these fights because we've got one of the best here at WagerTalk. Is Kyle Anthony stepping in here today on Last Call. And Kyle, it's exciting. We've had to deal with a couple of these, fight nights and these kinds of things, but we've got a lot of big names on this card here tonight. But I've been talking to some guys all week, and they're like, well, it's not the greatest of cards, but, there's a lot of familiar names, which I guess is what's giving it to the buzz. What do you think of this card?
I mean, I would have to say this is the biggest card that UFC could probably put together here. I mean, there's champions littered throughout this lineup here, throughout this card. So I think it's going to be not only entertainment, but a very profitable one as well, too. So looking forward to it. To it.
Absolutely here. I want to say a big shout out to those of you guys joining us live here today on this Saturday Last Call as we try to dive into a number of the games last minute here and answer any questions that you guys have. So drop them in the comments. And of course, those of you that are joining us on the replay, drop a comment below. Let us know exactly what your favorite fight of the night is. And we're going to start with one a lot of people know here, and Justin Gaethje going to be back in. I didn't even know Holloway was still fighting. Why is Holloway still fighting at this point? Like, what else does he have to prove at this point? Like, I don't, Max blessed Holloway. Well, not if you don't know your name, dude. Why do you keep getting hit in the head? Like, what are we doing? Seriously, what are we doing with Gaethje and Holloway here?
So this is a spot here where you've got, and the reason why I think Max is moving up is because he's moving up. He's looking to another title. He's looking to kind of add to his legacy. You've got the current BMF champion in Justin Gaethje. We know what he's got. He's got big power. He's got the big leg kicks. He's going to move forward. And Max Holloway, great striking overall, good pace. Now, the one thing here when you look at it that I think that is going to be very interesting in this spot is the fact that this is the second time that Max has moved up to 155 pounds. Now, the first time he did that was back in 2019 and didn't go well for him, but he did have a nice performance. He did look well. It was against Dustin Poirier. He did pretty well. They were both striking very well. If you looked at the strikes over the 5 rounds, it was 181 for Max, 178 for Dustin Poirier. That doesn't tell the whole story here, is because the power advantage for Dustin Poirier was huge. You could see it. He rocked Max multiple times, wobbled him, dropped him, and the power was so different. And that is, I think, kind of how this plays out here, where it's just going to be a big power advantage for Justin Gaethje overall. He's a big 155-pounder. Now, as we were just saying, Max is moving up to 155 pounds for a second time. He has to really, and we're going to find out tonight, we're going to see he's got to put on the weight. He's got to put on mass. He's got to put on the size. And sometimes that can really hurt you. Who knows? We're talking 10 pounds, but still, could it ruin his cardio? Could it slow him down? Could it slow down some of his footwork? Some of those things could actually hurt him in this spot. But I think it's going to be the power. I think the pushing forward, the leg kicks will be there. You saw Volkanovski land a lot of leg kicks on Max Holloway in the past. I think that's going to be a path for him here. And the only way that I see Max really kind of finding opportunity is just pushing a pace, really forcing Gaethje to work, and find something late. But I think Gaethje's power advantage is going to be very, very, you can see it right away in this fight, I think. So I do like Justin Gaethje here. Money has come in on Max, and it's tightened up. I do like Gaethje as a money line, but I think Gaethje via knockout is the spot. I do like it. It's around plus 155, plus 160. I think that's how this fight ends. And unfortunately, Max, I think, takes another loss here.
Yeah, I didn't realize, he's only 32, but that he's fought everybody is mileage. Legit, right? Like heavy mileage. Like, damn, dude, like you got to be. And then when you look at the list of guys that he is fought. I mean, what? Aldo Poirier, what? Frankie Edgar, Rodriguez. I mean, you go down the list,
almost.
it's like he's fought everybody. So this is going to be a rough one for him, is the way I think you're leaning to it here tonight. Now, if he is to have any success, the longer the fight goes, or he better get it quickly in this one here?
I think that it's really going to be Gaethje's going to have a huge advantage early. I really think that's where a lot of the threat will be. Yes, for Max, but I think Max has the ability to. He's got cardio. The guy has shown to have cardio. Right. He has shown to be durable. He's never been knocked out. So that also going to be something. But this is, again, different weight class, different power, different kind of thing. Gaethje's going to be bigger even than Dustin Poirier was. I think that the power advantage is going to be a big difference here, and that's how I think Max is going to be taken out here.
Gaethje, 35 too. He's the old man in the ring. Isn't that hilarious when you think about it, man? He's the older dude in the ring right now with Holloway, and we're all burying Holloway. It's hilarious here. All right, Kyle Anthony in the house here, guys. If you don't know, when it comes to MMA, nobody better than Kyle Anthony at WagerTalk.com. He's on a 7-0 run, 5%, 4% best bets here, 10-1. On events already this year, up 31 units in MMA. And tell the folks quick before we get to another fight what you got rolling over at WagerTalk.
Yeah, so another great spot that I do love, 5% play for this event. Have 5 plays all together right now. I may be adding a 6th position, not sure yet, but the 5 plays that I had, 3 of them are at plus money. So feeling good about it, and I think we're going to be 11-1 after this event.
Ooh, love it. All right, we got, and again, if you're joining us live here today, drop us any questions you have on tonight's card. We'll see if Kyle can get through a couple of them here, as well as one other fight preview is coming up. And don't forget, guys, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. We will certainly appreciate it here, as we've got plenty more content coming up, including a lot of Major League Baseball games we're going to break down with Steve Merril here in just a few. But let's see what we got here coming up. Next fights. Oh, this is an interesting one too here, right? We got Yuri here, and I love the hair, dude. Always one of the best. You got to love a dude with a man bun rolling into the ring here. Taking on Rakic. Didn't work out well for Yuri last time out here. What happens with this fight here? Because I mean, look at the price, man. This is a coin flip. Is it a coin flip in your opinion?
I don't really think so, actually. And you've seen Money has it was slow. You know, you had Yuri a little bit of a dog there, but Money has come in, made this even tighter here. And both of these guys are high level strikers. They bring a lot of power. They're going to move forward. They're going to throw a lot of shots. Now, the interesting part about Yuri is the fact that he is so unorthodox and so awkward. I mean, the guy just brings that awkward style. He's hard to prepare for. His footwork, his movement, the angles really at which he throws his strikes are unlike anything that really anybody does, and that's why it's worked for him. It's backed it up with a lot of power. He's been able to find a lot of good shots there, and the other side here is that Rakic can be a low-volume striker, and his output can be low. He can be just looking for those power kicks. He's got really strong kicks. We do know that Yuri is susceptible to leg kicks. That worked out big time for Alex Pereira in the last fight, and that's an opportunity for him. But I do believe the biggest vulnerability here for Rakic is going to be pressure, and that is something that just really he doesn't deal with as well. He likes to be more technical. He wants to be in space. He wants to utilize his kicking game. He's got a lower volume where you've got Yuri, and he's going to bring the brawl. He thrives in chaos. He's going to move forward. He's going to look to throw the big shots, and I think mixing in kind of the awkward style at which he is, mixing in also the forward is going to be very difficult for Rakic, who, again, is not going to be that comfortable. And then lastly, I think a key part to this is the fact that this is Rakic's return fight after 2 years. He blew out his knee 2 years ago against Jan Blachowicz, did not look good. He's now coming back, and I think it's just a big step up in competition for him. Also, Rakic has not had to face somebody like Yuri, while Yuri has had mixed results, but he's facing the highest level guys overall. And I think that Yuri's style, his power, his pressure is going to be how this fight goes for him. And I think a knockout is live here, but I do like Yuri Prochazka. I think that I do agree with the line movement. I think he gets the job done, and I think it's going to be an explosive fight overall. It's definitely going to be another one of those explosive fights tonight.
Yeah, I remember that fight when he blew his leg out. I mean, the hype going into that, and we thought it was going to be this great fight, and one kick and knee explodes, and they were like, what? This is great. Oh, that's outstanding. That was quick here, but it has been 2 years since since that happened, really?
Yeah, it's been 2 years, and that's the part of it too, that there's going to be the recovery time. There's going to be, and then you got to work in the training part, and then you've got to start. And this is another spot where, is he coming back? Is he 100%? We won't know, but is it because he wanted to be on the card? Is it all those things? And coming back with the guy that really brings a very tough stylistic matchup for him, coming off an injury, coming off 2-year layoff, the ring rust, any fighter that you talk to, ring rust is real. This is his first fight back, tougher competition. I really like Yuri here, and again, I think he gets the job done.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. The price is certainly right there for him, but you worried about Yuri's chin at all? Every time he loses, it's...
That is definitely part of it, though. And it is, though. So even the only time, the way he's very susceptible is definitely these blitzes. I mean, where Yuri comes forward, and that is going to be, I think, a path for him here, an advantage. But he does leave his chin up. He is the guy that is, kind of willing to get hit because he kind of believes in somewhat of his durability, but he believes that if you touch me, if I touch you, I'm going to hurt you more. Right. And that's why he's going to move forward. So I do think that is a path for him, but the low volume for Rakic, I think, allows Yuri to kind of move forward at will and find the big shots.
Yeah, he is not a guy that is easily controlled, Yuri, and Rakic is a guy that is at his best when he dictates, and he ain't, not with that hair, he ain't dictating the man bun at all here tonight. So we've got 2 in the books here, guys. Don't forget, package ready to go with Kyle Anthony over at WagerTalk.com. I know we've got some fight questions coming in here, Kyle, so we'll rattle off a bunch here and see how many we can get through. The bonuses now. This was a big story this week. Keith Landry in the house. Shout out. The bonus is now, what, 300,000 for the fight of the night? Do we see more guys going for broke here and going for the knockouts than expected? It's a good question.
I actually do believe that this is going to push some of that. I mean, you saw guys, when Dana White announced this, I mean, even guys in the top of the card, like Gaethje and these guys, they're all, I mean, their eyes lit up. I mean, they were like, holy shit, here we go. This is a big spot. So I do think that's going to push certain fights. Absolutely. Even guys in the prelims were all pumped up about it. So I do believe in certain fights that could do it. But overall, I think you're going to see a lot of finishes. They all want to have that opportunity for the 300K. So I do agree with that. I think that it's going to push a couple fighters to really look for those finishes.
We were talking about this earlier, though. Just a lot of these guys, certainly on the undercards, right? These are not well-paid dudes to get there. I mean, it's very well documented here. So are you shocked it's taken this long to come up with this kind of fight of the night bonus? Because these guys were doing it for $50K, right? So now all of a sudden $300K, man, that's a big motivator if you're not a big name guy trying to make a name for yourself, no?
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely. I mean, although down on this particular card, I mean, there's past champions that are, in the prelims and those kinds of things. But again, I mean, you've got guys that are the elite fighters that seemed extremely, extremely excited about it, just the way you look at their faces. So again, it's obviously a lot of money, but in the overall, you sprinkle that on top of what they're making, their win bonuses, their show-up bonus, all of those things. This is a big payday. So I do think that you're going to see people absolutely going for it. And some of them were even saying, hey, maybe since it's UFC 300, why don't we do 3 times as much or something like that and make it 150? So to do 300,000 is a big number there. So I think that's going to be pushing some finishes here and some exciting moments.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I think this card's going to be a lot of fun here tonight. And Shogun Mike in the house. Kyle, what do you think about a small ticket on Cody here? I sense a wake up call for Bo Nickel. The guy has fought absolutely no one here. What do you think of this fight here? Has it really been no one?
Yeah, I mean, he beat Jamie Pickett, who I think lost like 4 in a row. He beat Val Woodburn, who is really terrible. And now he's got 5 fights in his career, and now he's going to be the biggest favorite ever in the UFC at like minus 3,000 or whatever he is. I actually do think a sprinkle on Brundage is not a bad look. I have not bet it myself. But at plus 1,200, it is just way wide. The path for Bo Nickel really is the wrestling. That's his thing. That's, he's got power, obviously, as well, too. But, Cody, the guy's got wrestling also. He's going to look to wrestle. They're going to look to scramble. So I think that could try to push Bo into a little bit of deeper water and allow opportunities there. So, and he's got 3 times as many fights as Bo Nickel also. So the experience is there. It's a big moment. The guy's opening up the UFC 300 pay-per-view. So a lot of, there's just this is a huge moment for Bo Nickel at massive number. I mean, literally implied probability is around 7%. I think that Cody has a little bit better chance than that in this spot. But again, you don't want to lay too much money on this at all, but it is not a bad sprinkle spot at a plus 1,200 or even the knockout for Cody Brundage. But overall, I would completely stay away from adding Bo Nickel. Even if he steamrolls him in the first round, not worth at all a parlay piece or anything like that at that number. Does not make sense.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you at that price there as well. All right, Kyle Anley, questions rolling in here, brother. Jack Faulk wants to know, thinking about going contrarian and taking Youssef over Lopes. Any thought? I think you talked about this on WagerTalk today, this week, did you?
Yeah, and I still agree with it. I mean, I like Diego Lopez. I mean, I think this guy, he's got the elite level jiu-jitsu. This guy is top notch. And a lot of people don't realize that he actually has pretty good striking. I mean, that's the part of people are so worried about his grappling and his ground game that he's really putting it together. He's really looking good. He's light on his feet. Where Youssef, I do think that it's going to be a spot where Youssef has power. I mean, I can't really hate anybody taking the Youssef side because he's got power. He can maybe defend some of the takedowns a little bit. I just don't like that Edson Barbosa took him down multiple times, and Barbosa is a complete kickboxer. So I think that could be an opening for him. Plus, the line isn't crazy to me here. So I do like Diego over Youssef in this spot. And, I even think that if you're looking to get a little more creative, I do think the submission, maybe he knocks down Youssef and finds that submission. So I do lean Lopez by submission, but even the money line is not too bad either.
Yeah, no, not at all there. Definitely some quality here on the card tonight at UFC, some angles, and then there's Holly Holm. Good Christ. What are we doing with her at this point? I mean, honestly, like we gotta do better here, UFC. I mean, what are we doing with her? Is she you think she's got a shot here? Because I haven't talked to anybody who likes her yet.
Yeah, I mean, the big question for Kayla Harrison coming in was how was she going to look making weight? She fought at 155 pounds outside in PFL. Now she's fighting at 135 pounds. So people are saying, wow, how is she going to do it? All these things. From all accounts and the weigh-ins, she looked great. She looked in great shape. Who knows how that's going to translate into the cage, but she really won her first battle, which was making the weight. Now, the only thing that you can look at for Holly having a path is the fact that she does not stop moving. She just is on her bike. She's always on the outside. She's always looking to stick and move. She's fine point fighting. She's not going to look to get the knockout. She's not going to look to do those things. She's going to sprawl, brawl, and look to keep on her bike. And that could be tough for Kayla. She just fought Aspen Ladd. Aspen Ladd, she didn't really do that. She won the fight, but she didn't look that good, Kayla. So I do think the path is there. She can get a takedown and absolutely run through Holly. But it's another spot where I kind of want to get away from, that fight. It's a fight I'm not that interested in, monetarily speaking. Right. But if I was playing aside, I would take Holly in this spot. I think the line is too wide. And Kayla has a lot of questions with just overall her skill set and making that weight.
Yeah, I love Nick chiming in, going, man, her boxing is terrible. Well, it is. I mean, Holly Holm should be able to pick her apart if she can keep distance. So interesting stuff there. We also have we'll get a couple of more here, but I wanted to ask you because it's amazing. There is a dude on the card here tonight. This is what, UFC 300, right? What in the world do we have somebody fighting that was not only on UFC 200? But was on UFC 115. What in the world is Miller still? And look at who he's fighting. Bobby Green, who's got to be pushing, 40 years old here. Like, holy crap. What is this, like the senior circuit? What is going on here?
Jim Miller has been pointing at 300. He wants to be on it. He's on it. I mean, he's on it. Now, I got to say, though, this is actually a tough spot. Bobby Green has great boxing, great footwork. He can utilize that on the feet. He should absolutely dominate. It's just that Bobby Green took a brutal ass kicking by Jalen Turner in his last fight. That's a big part of this. And Jim Miller has a path. He can get some takedowns, do those things. But if I had to pick here, again, not a spot that I placed any money on, I like Jim Miller in the plus money. I think he's able to do it and then maybe even retire, who knows? But it's a fight that I think there's too many variables that I don't really think that I want to take a side there.
I mean, two legends, don't get me wrong, but like, holy Christ, like, really? What would you just like find and do? Like, Phil, like, dude, if you were in UFC 100, like, dude, there's no reason for you to be here except on the sidelines calling it. That's the bottom line.
They said Jim Miller's first fight was at UFC 89. Like, that's almost like, wild.
Wow.
UFC 89, holy. Yes.
Wow, that is absolutely out of control. Shout out to those of you guys joining us live here today. Don't forget to give a thumbs up if you could. We certainly appreciate it. Shout out to Instagram as well. You guys hanging out with us there as well as on X. We do appreciate you joining us here on Last Call. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you hadn't done so already, as we've got a whole lot more coming up here today, not just in UFC, but of course, Kyle's got his best bets locked and loaded on his page at WagerTalk. And we got a whole bunch of MLB coming up. We're going to start breaking down some games, so we certainly appreciate it. I think we had one more question, was it, from Keith? Let's see, Casamigos for K, over 4.5 shots of Casamigos for K. Yes, absolutely.
Best bet is over. The best bet's over. The best bet's
Dude, what is the juice on that? That's ridiculous, Keith. You and I both know. Listen, he's over 4.5 on this show. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, it's goddamn unbelievable. Kyle, tell him what you cashed. Tell him what you got rolling here tonight, my man at WagerTalk. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we have 5 plays locked and loaded, 3 of them at plus money. I do have a 5% best bet up. We've cashed 7 in a row of 5% and 4% big plays for us, as well as out of the last 11 events, I've cashed 10 of them. So I'm feeling great, seeing the board great, feeling good about this card overall. And let's make some money and let's have some Casamigo as well, too.
Well, yeah, it's like cereal. You got to be kidding me. He's already in there. Kyle, outstanding as always, my friend. Best of luck with those fights here tonight. Enjoy the card, and we'll talk to you again next week, man. Be well.
Take care.
I can't. Oh, Keith, coming out with the Casamigos. I love it. All right, guys, don't forget, we got plenty of Major League Baseball on tap here today, a loaded card. We'll see how many games actually get rained out today here. But if you have any MLB questions, don't forget, drop those in there, because none other than Double R, 1L, Steve Merril in the house, ready to roll here today. And Merril, I would have thought for sure he was already over 4.5 Casamigos there, but that's just me. But how about you, my man, coming in red hot once again, right? You cashed again last night with your best bets, didn't you?
Yeah, we're on a nice run. Best bets and free plays. 5-1 the last 2 nights alone in baseball and basketball. Don't forget about those free plays. I try to post one each and every day. We had the Dodgers over last night, a nice, easy free play winner. We had the Bulls on Thursday night, blowout winner on Thursday in the NBA. And the best bets are doing well. 5-1 combined best bets and free plays as we head into Saturday. And yes, we're talking MLB, Joe, because I love to look up numbers. And I was thinking, boy, it's been since maybe September that there's been no football or basketball game on the card, college or pro. Well, I went back and looked. It was Tuesday, October 2nd, the last time we did not have a college or pro football game, and the NBA had not started yet. It might have been a preseason game. That's 192 days ago.
Wow.
First time in 192 days that we don't have a legitimate football or basketball that would be college or pro to talk about. So, yeah, baseball is here. This is where we're going to make some serious money for the next several months.
Yeah, no, I'm with you here. The grind is on here, people, when it comes to the MLB. So drop any questions you have for Steve about some of these games coming up, and we'll start here, Merril, with a battle of Texas, so to speak. Here is Houston getting ready to take on the Texas Rangers. Both these teams are a little head-scratching, Merril, to start this season with, but it is a long season. I guess we should have expected maybe a little bit of regression there from the Rangers, given that they played more baseball last year than anybody else. But the Rangers came out swinging hot last night. 12-8, they handed business to the Astros. Seems like everyone beats the Astros these days. What are we getting today here in this matchup?
Yeah, so the Rangers were 8-32 straight up, I believe, the previous 40 meetings going into last night against Houston. They're now 9-32 straight up, and they're once again a $1.35 dog here. Want to talk about this game for a couple reasons, though. First of all, it's a prime matchup this afternoon at 4 Eastern. But, yeah, we got to be very careful with the Houston Astros. And I always talk about momentum in baseball. It's a 162-game season, and teams can go good or bad for quite a run. And we always talk about undervalued and overvalued teams. And I think the Astros might be on the last end of that championship curve for the last decade. And what's always been their strength over the last few seasons, including the World Series championships, has been a very deep and strong bullpen. And that's what jumps out to me so far this year. After their first 15 games, they're 4-11 straight up. They have a 5.31 ERA, and they have a 6.2 ERA in their 8 home games. The bullpen has been their weakness here. It's been very bad. It's been their strength in years past. So until we see otherwise, I'd be very careful with this Houston team, and I sure would be careful laying a $1.45 price. In fact, they've lost now 4 straight games, including last night. They've been a favorite in every one of those games. In fact, they've been a favorite in every game but one this season. That one game was actually as a dog against Texas in Game 4 earlier in the week. If you take out that game, they've been favored in their other 14 games. They've gone 3-11 straight up as a favorite this season. So it's not like they've been playing a killer schedule. They've been an underdog in every game. They're 3-11 as a favorite. The bullpen has some of the worst numbers in baseball. Be very careful with Houston. Maybe they still get it done. It's a long season. But until we see otherwise, I think we have to tread lightly. And on the flip side of that, the Rangers were a very underrated team last year. I mentioned that the no-shift rule last year would benefit certain teams, and Texas was on the top of my list. Had a season wins total play over, which I gave out free to everybody here on WagerTalk TV. They have a good left-handed lineup. Not being able to shift on them obviously helped last year. They also run well. It's more runner-friendly now, bigger bases, less pickoff moves, pitch clock. And, this is a Rangers team that overachieved last year, maybe. I'm not sure they overachieved. I think they're a good team. They're just 8-6 this season. So like you said, off to a little bit of a slow start. But, yeah, be very careful with Houston until we see otherwise.
Yeah, the entire starting rotation pretty much injured here at this point. A lot of guys, when you go down that list of dudes that they don't have available with a shaky bullpen to begin with, I think you're going to get games where you give up double-digit in runs here until they reinforcements can come by here. Interesting, too. I know FB coach in the house in the chat. Shout out to him. It's an interesting question, one in which I will ask with a question, Merril. Are the Toronto Blue Jays that bad, or should I add, is Colorado really that bad? Are we overestimating Toronto or underestimating Colorado here who went to the Rogers Center. Don't forget, 2 years ago, Merril, they changed the entire dimensions of that ballpark so Toronto could score more runs. Didn't happen last year for Toronto, and guess what? It ain't happening so far this year either. So, what's going on with this team here?
Yeah, they only put up 11 runs in the first 3 home games earlier this week against a good Seattle team. Seattle's got some good pitching. But yeah, the Rogers Center's been reconfigured. Toronto started at, I think their first 10 games on the road this season. Mm-hmm. They've now played 4 straight at home. They're 6-8 overall. They're 2-2 in the home games so far. Not a good loss last night. Obviously, it's a 220 favorite. And the way they lost also, they gave up 20 hits. So not a fluke that Colorado got 12 runs. But Toronto had 11 hits. They left 8 guys on base. They should have had more than 4 runs. They did score 5 runs in 2 of those first 3 home games. So over could be worth a look here if that Rockies offense remains hot. That's a big if, though. Another reason I would lean over, though, here is, once again, both bullpens have been god-awful this year. Toronto has an ERA of 5.6. Colorado a 6.3 ERA. And I know Coors Field, not pitcher-friendly. Well, so far on the road this year, their 8 road games, their ERA is 6.3 also. So it's not a good Colorado bullpen. Toronto's bullpen, like Houston, has been dicey. So, yeah, the common denominator a lot of times when teams start the season slow is you just look at the bullpen numbers, and that's been the case with Houston, Colorado, Toronto, all these teams that are sub 500.
It's kind of so tough early on in the season, Merril, with some of these teams that you thought were going to be good, but Philadelphia has done this to us every year now for how long, right? You can't bet on them early. You got to wait until after, late July. Then they start figuring out. There looks to be a few teams here that are starting the same kind of way where I don't want to stick a fork in them just yet. But boy, oh boy, tick-tock here. I know there was a question in there also about the Brew Crew as a dog here today. You and I talked about Milwaukee, and nobody was talking about it. A lot of folks stuck a fork in this Milwaukee team before the season started and said, like there's some major contender in the Central there in the National League. But it's a very winnable division, and I kind of like the Brewers here this year, especially once Williams comes back. They still have a pretty good bullpen. And what's-his-face there, Yelich, still having a kind of an MVP start to the season here. So what do you think about the Brewers here?
Yeah, Milwaukee's always been a sleeper team for me. The last several seasons, when we talk about futures in August and September, I've always said if Milwaukee makes the playoffs, and normally it's not even an if. Last year they won the division by 8 games over Chicago, and they are in a very weak division. In fact, every team had 83 wins or less, barely over 500, except for Milwaukee last year that won 92 games. But if they make the playoffs, the last few seasons with Woodruff, Peralta, some of the other good, they really had 2 really good starters, really 3 good starters for several seasons. That's always dangerous in a 5 or 7 game series. But Milwaukee has underachieved. They've never been able to really get past making the playoffs. I still think there's some talent there. And like you said, Joe, the real key is that they're in a bad division. Although it's a little less important now because you play less divisional games. So they have to win some of these non-division games. And this is obviously a tough matchup against a very good Baltimore team. And you wouldn't thought saying the Orioles are 8-5 straight up that they're off to a slow start, but expectations are high, and they should be. They've been really good the last couple of years after being a bottom feeder. Maybe a breakout game last night for Milwaukee, an 11-1 win at Baltimore. They were a slight favorite, though, keep in mind, in that game. Baltimore did not have one of their better pitchers on the mound, and they did get 15 hits. But still, Milwaukee's now got 12 hits or more in 4 of their last 5 games. They're in excellent offensive current form. That is something you like to look at with teams. Both bullpens have been average this season. This is a 4 o'clock Eastern game. The total open 9. It's dropped down to 8.5. So if Milwaukee hits the ball like they did last night, there might be some value now with over 8.5.
Yeah, it's interesting, too. Mike Kremer going with Hall, the lefty, on the mound there for Milwaukee. Interesting game there. We do have another game here, Merril, we're going to get to regarding the Dodgers. Always interesting with the Dodgers these days. And before you get to that game, though, those of you joining us live, we certainly appreciate it. If you have any questions for Steve about today's Major League Baseball lineup, drop them below. If you're catching us on the replay, we want to know exactly what is your favorite Major League Baseball play of the day. Drop them in the comments there. We appreciate you guys hanging with us. And Merril, what do you got rolling over at WagerTalk.com heading into a loaded weekend?
Gonna have some baseball for Saturday, and it's quite simple because there is no NBA. All 30 teams played yesterday on Friday. All 30 NBA teams play tomorrow on Sunday, the final day of the regular season. Nobody plays today, but there's plenty of baseball. So get my top baseball best bet for Saturday at WagerTalk.com. And keep in mind, when you're a direct client, you get it emailed to you instantly. You can be on the go on the weekends here on Saturdays and Sundays. I know people are on the go. You get an email and text it to you instantly so you can get the play and lock in the best number. And we do have a buy 30 days, get 7 more days for free. So if you want baseball and my number one ranked NBA, you can get 37 days for just the price of 30. Or if you want just my NBA package, which gets tomorrow's finale in the regular season, the entire playoffs, the next 2 months, it's just $188. No promo codes are needed. And by the way, I am number one not only this season in the NBA again, but number one all time in the history of Wager Talk sides and totals combined. Number one ranked NBA last year in the playoffs. I was 29-17. I love the postseason. It's a great time to get on board. So once again, if you want the NBA only, the 188 special gets you done. If you want baseball and basketball, try out that 30-day and get 7 more days for free this weekend only. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
I love it, Merril. We got questions rolling in, but let's dive into the Dodgers and the Padres here today. The Dodgers are always interesting here with the pricing and the markets. We were wondering, Steve, we talked about it from week 1, right? What were the markets and how are they going to price the Dodgers? And was there ever going to be any opportunity to fade them? They have a lot of under $2 opportunities thus far for them here. Today's another one with basically a bullpen game, right? With Stone taking on Waldron here. It hasn't moved a ton. The total hasn't either. Still sticking at 9 here. But how do you approach betting the Dodgers this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, the best team in the history of baseball perhaps has only won 4 of their last 12 games by more than a run. Only 4 wins by more than a run their last 12. So, I mean, they have not been dominating. As I mentioned earlier, that free play winner last night for everybody on my page at WagerTalk.com was the over 8.5 between the Dodgers and Padres. We got there easy, almost doubled it, 15 runs. But the Dodgers, 7 runs on 7 hits last night, a little misleading. San Diego's the team that's offensively hot right now. They've gone over 3 of their last 4. They have scored 8 runs or more on their own 3 of their last 4. They've had 22 hits in those last 2 games with 18 runs. So I do like the over again in this game. One thing that concerns me, though, there could be rain. We don't get a lot of rain in L.A., but keep an eye on the weather. And once again, that Dodger offense is a little lukewarm, but they've got so much explosiveness. I definitely think it's Dodgers are over basically almost every game. I do look to play them in certain situations. You would think maybe they're focused after back-to-back losses. And look, even though they've lost 2 in a row in 3 of their last 5, they still have had 9 hits or more in each of those last 3 games. So, I say that they only had 7 hits last night. They're still crushing the ball on average. So definitely like the over here. And Dodgers in a focused bounce-back spot might be worth a look as well.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. Although they have, it's been a little slow. To say the least here. I thought Yamamoto, once again, continuing to give up some runs. But don't forget, he gave up a boatload of runs when they played the game in Korea. And while he gave up a few many last night as well. So
right,
not the lights out start.
Hitters,
yeah,
right?
the same
San
team.
Diego's
right. So maybe it's the Padres. Yeah. Maybe the Padres have his number.
Yeah. And also, I think we got to be careful with these international guys that come over for the first time, right? I mean, that's a huge culture shock thing. So I would be careful with him until we see him turn it on. Also, obviously, the Padres got to him, but they got to him, like you said, the first time. So it's not necessarily that they were more comfortable the second time. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely something to keep an eye on here. I know we've got, what was the Dodgers, I think was not the Dodgers, the Tigers, rather. Andrew's got Tigers even against the Twins at home. And I don't think that one was a whole lot of Manning is on the mound, I know, for Detroit, who behind Skubal. Skubal's getting run support here this year. Love him. Minus 130, I'm seeing Merril 9. The total starting to creep up here in this matchup. Detroit, a lot of runs they finally scored there. They haven't been hitting the cover off the ball. Last night was good. But can they go back-to-back in this one?
Yeah, I believe it's a doubleheader today. So there's 2 games in this. So we have to keep an eye on how the first game goes. And obviously you want to look at bullpen usage. I think one of the more underrated angles in baseball is if the first game has a lot of bullpen usage, take a look at that over in the second game. It's just something to consider. These 2 teams in general have been very strong, though, with the bullpen this year. 2 of the best in baseball. Minnesota, 1.8 ERA. Detroit, 1.7 ERA. So these have actually been 2 of the best bullpens in baseball. And mentioned that I'm on a strong run the last 2 nights, 5-1 on free plays and best bets. Well, guess what? The only miss was the under in this game yesterday. That was the only one I've gotten wrong. And don't feel like I necessarily had a bad handicap. 2 excellent bullpens.
No.
Minnesota scored 2 runs and had only 6 hits, but they got to 10. So that's what the difference was, because Detroit did put the ball in play. They had 10 hits, and they actually have hit pretty well. So lean Detroit. Minnesota's lost 5 of their last 6. Detroit's in better current form offensively, and both bullpens are strong. So definitely would not disagree with the under in game 1 here at 1 o'clock Eastern, under 8. And then, of course, keep it on the bullpen usage before you play game 2.
Yeah, Maeda getting the ball for Detroit. Looks like Joe Ryan will be there on the mound for him. But it feels like a strikeout prop to me in that game. It always is with Ryan if you can get it under 6. If you can get 5.5, somewhere in that ballpark there, it's not a bad way to go. He certainly doesn't have a problem missing barrels here these days. -120 right now. Total is 8 in that opening one, and Maeda should be able to keep the ball's on the ground there. So maybe, just maybe, the under is coming in game 1 on that one there. All right, we've got also, I know the Yankees with Deep Fry Ty in the house here. Shout out to him. The Yanks getting ready today, finally. They got rained out yesterday. This game is coming up at the top of the hour, I believe, Merril. Early start, 12:10 in this one. Seeing 8.5 full game total. Yankees are about a -125 favorite on the road with Clark Schmidt on the mound against Carrasco. I believe these guys were both supposed to pitch last night, so an extra day's rest here. What are you thinking here, Merril, with the Yanks? Should we look at the under in this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you check the WagerTalk Live odds screen, you'll see that Minnesota game 1 on the normal schedule. Game 2 is a write-in at 4 Eastern. But then the Yankees' normal game is the 6 o'clock Eastern. The write-in game, like you said, is an early start here at 12:10. So a lot of people probably not going to even realize it's on there. It's at the very bottom. Schmidt and Carrasco is what I'm seeing for that one. Yankees are a team I still think are very live and die by the long ball. This is a team that can put up runs in clumps, but they also can go in a game with 7 or 8 hits. And I said that last year. And at a lot of times we saw unders last year. And once again, if you look at the Yankees, every game going back to March 30th so far this season, they've had 10 hits or less. And they've had single-digit hits now in 9 of their last 11 games, yet they've gone 8-3 straight up in those 11. So it's a tricky team with totals for that reason, but I always kind of lean under because unless they get the long ball, it's a team that's not going to put a lot of hits on the board, not a lot of runs otherwise, and that's why they struggled so much last year when Aaron Judge got injured. So if he gets hurt again this year at some point, you want to fade him and you want to look to play the under early on before the markets catch up. Bullpen, these are also 2 of the best bullpens in baseball this year. Yankees a 2.6 ERA, Cleveland a 1.3. Cleveland's been as good as anybody. They've given up only 7 earned runs and only 25 hits and almost 49 innings of work. And it's an early start, as you mentioned, which I think makes things a little difficult sometimes for the hitters, a 12 Eastern start that's 11 a.m. Minnesota time. So the under in game 1 would make some sense here.
Yeah, it's going to be get ready, guys, because that first pitch coming up rather quickly here at the top. And we are being told, by the way, what do we got? 17-mile-per-hour wind blowing out to center field in that game. Interesting. Does that change your mind about a total in these games here, Merril?
Yeah, that's something that kept me off this game, actually, was the weather. There's always, look, you can always have concerns. Nothing's a 100% grand slam. But there also is some uncertainty a lot of time with doubleheaders. I don't do a lot with doubleheaders. I mean, as far as releasing plays to clients, it's almost impossible to do game 2 before seeing game 1, right? And we only have a 1-hour window. So that's why I said always look at the bullpen usage before playing games 2. You do want to check the updated weather. When I checked it, I saw it blowing a little bit across, actually, at 9 to 10 miles an hour. Yeah. Also, possibly light rain. That's another concern. Of course, they got postponed last night. So, yeah, weather would be the big concern. But from a matchup perspective and being an early start, I think the under does make some sense.
Yeah, the Twins game, FB coach. Yeah, but it's also it's actually a 19-mile-per-hour left-to-right wind in Cleveland today as well. So that entire area is going to see an awful lot of windy conditions. Just make sure that you know where it's blowing there. But yes, with Detroit and the Twins, there's going to be some wind blowing dead out in Cleveland all day. That's nearly 20-mile-per-hour winds left to right in that one. So buckle up. That should be a very interesting matchup when it comes to there as well. And we do have, I believe, there was one more question that we had regarding let me make sure. Oh, yeah, of course, the Kansas City team. There's Manea. Okay, we'll go with the Manea question. The Mets taking on Kansas City. Finally, Kansas City lost the game. That was looking pretty good there for a while. It's one thing to win at home. It's a whole nother thing to win on the road. I thought that line told us everything we needed to know last night, Merril, where Kansas City on a crazy winning streak was still a dog against the New York Mets. And they had Severino on the mound yesterday. We're all going, Severino. But as it turns out, Mets handled business. Do you trust Manea as a lefty here to handle business for game 2?
Yeah, first of all, just check the real-time weather, 24 miles across the outfield at Cleveland, like you said, Joe. So if anything, I think that helps the under a little bit if it's a sideways wind, right? The ball's not going to go out as much. Something else, keep an eye on that before the game at 6 o'clock Eastern tonight. See if maybe you can get a little bit of an edge if the odds makers are lagging on that. As far as this Kansas City game, wind's blowing out pretty strong, 15 miles an hour dead center. So that could help a little bit of scoring in this game at 1:40 Eastern. And, the Royals are a team that's been playing pretty good so far, a little bit better than expected. And once again, I'm a big believer in early season momentum, really momentum during any point of the baseball season. We saw the Pirates get off to that strong start last year and then falter. Pittsburgh's off to a strong start again this year. We'll see if they falter. Kansas City now 9-5 straight up, but they've also benefited from playing a lot of home games. In fact, they're 8-2 at home this year. They're just 1-3. On the road. And I mentioned how New York, where this game is, there's a little bit of rain and a light and a drizzle and whatnot. And the Yankees, of course, in Cleveland got rained out yesterday. Maybe the Mets get rained out here today. We'll keep an eye on the weather. Not a game I'll be involved with, a little bit too much uncertainty. But yeah, Kansas City hitting the ball pretty well. And that's why they've now won 7 of their last 8. And it's legit. I mean, they've put up some runs. They had a 24-run span. And then last night they put up just 1. So maybe they're starting to cool off.
Yeah, I mean, Pog, I'll tell you what, Manea's only given up what now? 1 run in 11 innings pitched over his first couple of starts. So interesting stuff there. But another one of these games, right? I think the wind's going to be blowing out left to right again in that one in Citi Field. So, boy, oh boy, interesting weather situations here today. I don't think we can stress that enough to make sure, especially this time of year, Merril, where is the wind blowing and what is the field at which it is blowing at? Because there is a big difference between even 10 miles an hour blowing dead in or dead out at places like, Wrigley Field, for instance.
Right, and there's only a handful of ballparks in which the totals really get affected. Obviously, Colorado's always got altitude, and based on that pitching matchup, you'll see the totals anywhere from 12 to 13, sometimes 11s. But the only one really is the one you mentioned. It's Wrigley Field. I mean, that's the one where odds makers literally can double a total. So, yes, the wind is blowing sideways in Cleveland and New York with the 2 fields we're talking about here. If it was to start blowing out, it's blowing out in Fenway, by the way, it looks like today in Boston, about 15 miles an hour out to center. But, yeah, Chicago is the one which becomes a launching pad when it's blowing in, and then vice versa. It becomes very low scoring when it's blowing in versus out. So, Wrigley is the one, but the odds makers are onto that, and it's something they pay attention to. But as a handicapper, you definitely want to check the weather whenever possible.
Yeah, absolutely. There. Also, I have no idea what to do with this Oakland team anymore. Is it Oakland? Is it Vegas? What do we call them now? But they won again last night in extra innings, Merril. I give up. That's 6 wins on the year now, and I don't know what to do. I mean, they're to me, I didn't have them getting 6 wins until next month. But yet here we are. They're even beating the Nationals. Everyone beating the Nationals, apparently, but did not see that. They usually, at least over the last couple of years, they'd be so bad early, like the Marlins. And then, right around the All-Star break, they would go on this winning streak that nobody saw coming, and yay. But I don't know. Are we missing the boat maybe, or just sticking a fork in some of these younger teams that are playing with a lot of enthusiasm and effort here?
Well, I mean, one thing that's been easy is the under with Oakland. Even during these wins, they haven't gone over a single game. They're 5-1 straight up their last 6, and they've gone under every game with a push. And last night's wasn't even close. 8, it ends up 2-1, like you said. So this is an Oakland team that's a pure underplay, and there's a few reasons why. First of all, they're still a terrible offensive team. Don't let the winnings fool you. They're a terrible offensive team. They're averaging 2.8 runs a game, 2.1 at home, batting 197 in all games, all 14 games this year, and they're batting 188 in their 8 home games. the reason they're staying under and they're winning is because their bullpen has actually been surprisingly good, a 2.5 ERA in the bullpen. Nationals bullpen 2.8. So both of these bullpens have been solid. Nationals also a bad offensive team, 3.5 runs, 226 average. A little bit of usage last night, but I mean, two bad offenses, two good bullpens, pure underplays here. And on the season, Oakland is still just 6-7 to the under, and that's because when they were losing games a few weeks ago, they were giving up a lot more runs. Their pitching somehow gotten better. We'll keep a close eye on it. I'm not a believer, but one thing that's been consistent, win or lose, is that Oakland's offense is not any good. So you can always play A's team totals under as well. That's been a great moneymaker this year.
Yeah, big shout out, by the way, Lou in the chat room there on our YouTube page, as well as Walker and Merck Brothers Pizza there on Instagram. We appreciate you guys stopping in. Those of you joining us on X, big shout out to you. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you could. We certainly appreciate it. And Lou's talking about the A's. They've got a couple of good starting pitchers and a decent bullpen, and that is true, which is why we're getting some unders and why they are in games probably they should not be in here. Maybe a bet on team, but definitely an under team. And yes, Paco, it will not, under any circumstances, last here. I am with you there. One final thing, Merril, I came across this morning. Spencer Strider out for the rest of the year. I think the Braves kind of knew that, but it looks like the UCL, he's going to have to go under the knife or laser, and it looks like his season is finished. Now, the good news is they're playing the Marlins, and the Marlins haven't beaten them since the Bobby Cox days. And so I don't know what kind of effect does this have long-term for the Braves. Obviously, they can mash, but we finally saw a good outing from Max Fried yesterday. But again, it's the Marlins. This is, that's a huge loss for the Braves, not having him at the top of that rotation, is it not?
It is. And, like you said, they're a great offensive team. So regular season, they're going to still win a lot of games. They're going to score a lot of runs. But it's a huge blow to their championship aspirations because that's a guy that could go on 2 games in every 7-game series and be one of the better pitchers out there. So I don't want to say it's going to keep them from winning, but it's going to be a major blow. And the Dodgers are already the team to beat. And if anything, that makes the Dodgers a little bit stronger on a futures play. I think the Dodgers and Braves are both excellent regular season teams because they're so strong offensively. They do have deep pitching staffs. Obviously, Atlanta's a little weaker now. If you have a season win totals play on the over at the Braves, that probably is going to cost you a few wins with less quality starts now. But otherwise, the offensive players can mash. Like you said, it's not going to affect today's game. And if anything, maybe it rallies the troops a little bit here in the short term. This team has gone over, by the way, 6 of their last 7, 4 straight overs, double-digit hits in every one of those last 4 games, double-digit hits in 6 of their last 7 games. The best offensive team in baseball. I mentioned the Dodgers, you're always looking for the over or pass. Same thing with Atlanta. Now, the problem here is that Miami's a terrible offensive team, and they also have a terrible bullpen. So not a surprise that your Miami Marlins are 2-12 straight up. At some point, things will turn, but we need to see some offensive momentum first. This Miami team has scored 2 runs or less now in 4 of their last 6 games. If you're going to play the Braves today, it'd be the only way to play it, but you're going to have to get that price down a little bit. It's minus 200, which actually is pretty reasonable on the road, to be honest. I'm surprised it's not higher. The run line gets it down to minus 120, though, which is a pretty good option. And, of course, you can always do a minus 1 run line. And if you can't get one of those at your book, you can just play half a unit money line, 200, half a unit minus 120, minus 1.5, and that gets you basically what would it be, minus 160 at minus 1 run. So you get a push, and that way you don't lose if they win by exactly 1. And that, by the way, I've been red hot. That was another one of those tough losses about a week ago. What were they up 6-1 or 6-2, and they ended up winning 6-5 against, I think it was Arizona at the time. So, yeah, it does bite you occasionally, so there's different ways to attack it.
Yes.
That was the Mets game.
Why
Mets game 6-9.
Mets game
6-5.
Yeah. Why are there so many arm injuries? What's going on? Well, I don't think it's what's going on in the major leagues. I think it's what's going on the way up to the major leagues that's causing the issues here. And I think that's the biggest problem since Major League Baseball has made a push over the last decade where they didn't care about anything except how hard you threw. If you could hit 98 on the radar, guess what? You were in there. So that caused a lot of dudes on the way up to overexert and throw out their head. The art of pitching has long been gone. The days of Greg Maddux and company, long gone here. It's much more about, over the last decade, how hard you can throw. And what happened, Merril, is that you got a lot of guys coming up that overthrew, and this is what you've got now. They get to the majors, and guess what? The arm only has a shelf life of so much. Nothing you can do about it. That's why most guys have Tommy John surgery. We didn't have this, 20, 30 years ago. We didn't have it because it was more about the art of pitching and location and other things. It certainly wasn't about it. Only thing that matters is how hard can you throw. And that's kind of been the MO for Major League Baseball over the last decade.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, Joe, also to see how many of these guys have had injuries in the past. Because what you just said made me think, back in the day, if this happened to you in college or in the minors, you were done. You never made the pros. The Tommy John surgery wasn't as prevalent. There weren't as many options. Same thing with knee injuries in football and whatnot. These guys all just bounce back. You get a knee injury, you come back stronger now the next year in football. It's just insane. I love your input because Joe obviously has a huge baseball background, including college. And it is something I think a lot about as well from the youth level is, why do we not see pitchers go more than 5 innings? As a handicapper, it drives me crazy. I keep talking about these bullpen numbers because it's half the game now. And the bullpen is so random. I'm giving you bullpen numbers, but it's different pitchers every day, and you have no clue. You have no way of knowing who's going to be out there. You can maybe know who won't be out there if they've had a lot of usage, but you have no way of knowing who's going to be out there for 1 inning, and it's just random. That's why the first 5 innings, a lot of people do like that if you're handicapping the starters. But you're right. It's funny. On Facebook, a little feed popped up the other day. I should have sent it to you. You would have liked it. It was a slow-mo video from 100 years ago of Walter Johnson. I didn't realize what a sidearm thrower he was. So I go down that rabbit hole. I start reading him on more. And they estimated he threw in the low 90s at the time back in the 1924 World Series 100 years ago.
Right.
And that's insane back then, obviously, to throw in the 90s. Everybody was low 80s. And yet he still could go 8 or 9 innings. Cy Young had, 300 complete games? You talk about records that will never be broken. There's certain records that will never be broken. It's really changed. And I do wonder why sometimes. But I think you're right. It's the hard throwing. And the hitting gets bastardized as well. Everything's launch angles. Yes. Everyone forgets Aaron Judge is 6'9". He's bigger than football players. But that's how it rolls, and that's the era we live in now in baseball. But you're right, we're going to continue to see the arm injuries. It's not going to change.
Yeah, it's not going to change until the art of it. Although Fortnite, I love this. He says, well, you could also miss the foot off the plate back in those vaunted Braves pitcher days, and it was still a strike. Listen, let's not get crazy here, ripping Bobby Cox and the Braves back in the day. Those guys, I still would have taken, Maddox, Avery. I would have taken those guys any day. Glavin. Exactly. And then you got to ask yourself, how does a guy like Nolan Ryan throw 7 no-hitters in a career like that? Yeah,
he's one of the hardest throwers ever. Yeah, that's a great point, Joe, because he's one of the hardest throwers ever. I don't think he ever had an arm injury that I know of. Now, a couple things about Nolan Ryan. It's funny. I was talking to my son about him the other day driving to a baseball game. His legs were like ham hocks. He had farm boy strength. He had huge legs, but you throw hard with the legs. But other people have told me, too, Nolan Ryan was huge on long toss, which is, for those who don't know baseball, you warm up it, but you throw in the outfield as far as you can throw to each other. And I've talked to a lot of coaches about that recently, and I think Nolan Ryan is a great textbook example. Now, obviously, everybody's different. He was a physical freak, but he threw no-hitters, he threw hard, and he threw complete games. Verlander is up there. Verlander could go the distance even recently, and he was a tall guy that could throw hard. So I think those are great guys to study, and some of it might just be fortune.
Listen, I remember
you ask about fortune.
Well, it's interesting because I remember like it was yesterday. Anytime Nolan Ryan would get interviewed after a game, he was 2 hours on the bike after the game. The dude was people don't understand just how unbelievably ridiculous in shape. It was routine for him. And then the guy is, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest strikeout pitcher in the history of the game. But that routine didn't change for 20 years with him, and he still kicked Robin Ventura's ass. Big shout out to Dinger Boy, by the way, watching on the cell on YouTube Shorts. We appreciate you coming in here, my man. I want to get this and throw this out to you guys that are watching live as well as on the replay, because I'd love to see what you guys think here. He mentioned that it looks like we've got BetMGM has a share of a $50,000 pool this weekend. If you can pick who's going to hit a grand slam this weekend. So he wants to know, where would we go here if we were, a share of 50K, BetMGM. I love this, and I got to tell you, with the way the wind is blowing in some of these ballparks, Merril, I wouldn't. I'd take a stab with a couple of these teams that are facing third or fourth, pitchers in rotations, and that wind blowing out. This could be a whole lot of fun here this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought was you got to play a guy most likely from a good offensive team, though, because keep in mind, It's not just the hitter, it's not just the opposing pitcher, but you need bases loaded. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. So you need a team that gets guys on bases. So some of these offenses we're talking about, like the Marlins or the A's, that are just god-awful, make it almost virtually impossible. So the Dodgers and the Braves are the two best offensive teams in baseball. They make my short list. Ohtani, I believe, hit one last night, hit a home run last night. And you probably want a guy. It could be a leadoff hitter, but it's less likely there too, because first of all, the first inning, it can't happen. That's one less at bat. And the odds of getting the 7, 8, and 9 guys or the 6, 8, 9 guys on ahead of you is less likely. So you almost need to take a 4, 5 hitter or a 6 hitter, and on one of the better offensive teams. That actually does narrow your list down. And then, like you said, Joe, filter in maybe the wind or the opposing pitcher, and you probably only have a handful of suspects to choose from.
I agree 100% there. I think that's a great call there. But hey, be aware, if we can come up, we want to know who are you guys going to hit a grand slam this week. 50K, a share of 50K there at BetMGM. Sounds like a pretty fun weekend to watch it there. Also, Ray is chiming in, wind blowing 25 miles per hour in Philly. The question is, where in Philly is that wind blowing here as they get ready? Turnbull and Gonzalez there. Not a bad two pitchers. Left to right.
Now, 18 and a half, left to right. Left to right
Yep.
is what I'm seeing, dead across. So that should probably neutralize some home runs there.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's a great call, Dinger Boy. He also mentioned, which I thought was a good point, about the arms getting blown out on how the Japanese pitchers and the overseas players, Merril, those pitchers are used a million times more. They're throwing a ton of innings over there before they get the guys like Yamamoto and company. Those guys are throwing a ton over there. So a lot more usage on those pitchers across the pond. Worth keeping an eye on. Yeah, it's sometimes that they run out of steam a little bit quicker than anybody else. But that's a good point, Dinger Boy. So who is it? Who is going to hit the grand slam this weekend? Drop that below. Max Muncy, Matty Crenshaw on Instagram says, Max Muncy, you got to throw him up there, provided he doesn't strike out the entire weekend. So that's also impressive there, Matty. Also, P7 WER, Steve's been on fire lately, and that he has been over on Instagram. We appreciate that. And Merril, you are locked and loaded today, no?
Yeah, baseball's Saturday. We'll have the NBA back tomorrow on Sunday. But big picture, folks, this is the time of year we grind, like Joe said earlier. So that 30-day gets 7 more days for free, or the rest of the NBA season the next 2 months for just $2.50 a day for my number one ranked NBA best bets. Great time to be part of WagerTalk.com. And don't forget about those daily free plays. Try to get one of those up each and every day for everyone on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Outstanding stuff there. Big shout out to those of you joining us live here today. We really appreciate it. It's been a wild ride on Last Call each and every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Hope you'll come back and join us throughout the Major League Baseball season here. And also, if you missed it, Kyle Anthony broke down about half a dozen fights here tonight, UFC 300. I would encourage you guys to check that out, as well as, of course, the videos that we have posted on our YouTube channel here from all week long, talking about UFC 300, talking about the Masters. A lot going on this weekend. Should be a very, very profitable weekend across the board. Make sure you visit Steve Merril over at WagerTalk.com, and make sure you hit that subscribe and like button on the way out of here. And don't forget, come back and join us. Another week of content coming up here at Wager Talk. Shout out Paco, Lou, Fortnite, Dinger Boy in YouTube Shorts there, along with our good friend Wisconsin guy. Love these names in the chat room here. Matty Crenshaw over on Instagram. You guys rule. Don't forget, if it's sports betting content, game previews, and best bets you want, We've got them here at WagerTalk.com. Just go ahead, click on that video on your screen right now and get access to all the big games coming up this weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Good luck.